Hello everyone. In this video we're gonna cover C.Viper in Street Fighter 6. We're gonna cover her normals, specials, game plan, and combo routing, as well as some advanced techniques to elevate your gameplay. This video is first and foremost for beginners starting out with this character, but prior game knowledge is preferred, as some things will make more sense as you watch this video. We're gonna start with her light normals, going into her medium normals, into the heavies, and the special are gonna be the same structure as well. Let's start with her standing light punch. This normal is 4 frames and is -2 on block. This is very safe considering its range, and if the opponent tries to mash to take their turn, we can see that they don't have enough reach to reach with it. Even Luke's crouching medium punch barely misses. So you can use this normal to bait out offensive responses from the opponent. This normal also cancels into Heavy Thunder Knuckle on hit for a nice chunk of damage. It can also link into her other light normals pretty well. Four light normals into an Ender is not common in Street Fighter 6. Use this to your advantage to open up your opponent and get that knockdown. Moving on to Crouching Light Punch. Crouching Light Punch is also 4 frames, and it is also -1 on block, which is even more safe than Standing Light Punch. Another perk that this normal has is that it's actually +5 on hit, which means it links to Standing Light Kick, which is a great application for this type of normal. This is most likely your most common normal to use for mashing or when you're in a defensive position. Also, a good perk of it is that on punish counter, it's +9, which means you're gonna go into Crouch Fierce. And this gives her a nice chunk of damage for punish counters. Moving on, Crouching Light Kick. Standard Crouching Light Kick at 5 frames. On block, it is -1, but it has good reach. You can also link it into Crouching Light Punch. Viper also has a unique mechanic with this normal, but it is generally disincentivized to do. You can do Crouching Light Kick into her Super Jump Cancel. However, on block, it is generally not safe to do, as it is -11 on block. Standing Light Kick. 5 frame normal with good reach. You can also buffer it into Medium Thunder Knuckle. On block, this cancel is safe, meaning you have a very low risk option with a good chunk of damage. Moving on to her medium normals. We're gonna start with standing medium punch. Standing medium punch for Viper is +1 on block, which means you take your turn. Generally, for a normal like this, you either are going to have pushback or you're gonna risk range. However, this normal at 8 frames provides good reach, good active frames, and on drive rush, it is also +5, which means you can throw. Incredible normal for this application. If the opponent tries to mash out of it to stop you from doing the normal over and over again, you can do crouching light punch. And it gives a good confirm. Another thing is that on drive rush, we mentioned that it is +5, which means if the opponent tries to mash for whatever reason, we can frame trap into crouch fierce for a trade combo. Or we can frame trap into standing medium punch again, which on counter hit links into itself. This normal is essential for C.Viper's pressure. Moving on to her crouching medium punch. Crouching medium punch is a 6 frame normal with good reach, is -2 on block. On drive rush it is +2, however, it is not in throw range, so do be careful with that. However, since this normal is safe on block, you can generally use it to poke out your opponent and see what they're going to do. And on hit, you can link into the standing light kick, meaning that you do not have to buffer any special to get good damage. You can just visually confirm that it hits and go for the standing light kick into medium thunder knuckle. And since it's special cancelable, you can go into drive rush for huge damage. But we're going to discuss that later on in this video. Moving on to her medium kicks. Standing medium kick is 8 frames with huge reach. And while it is not drive rush cancelable, it is special cancelable for Viper using her unique mechanic super jumps. And you can cancel your super jump into specials. However, do be careful that it takes 1 drive gauge. Moving on. Oh yeah, one more thing about this normal before I forget. It links into all her thunder knuckles, and on counter hit, it combos into seismo. And on punch counter for whiff punches, it also combos into seismo, which gives her huge damage. Another thing, its cancel window is pretty big. You can see that I'm canceling very late into the animation and still get the confirm. Moving on to her crouching medium kick. This crouching medium kick is one of the biggest in the game. However, it is not drive rush cancelable. But similar to standing medium kick, it is special cancelable to using her super jumps. With its huge reach, you can check opponents walking back with this normal. You generally want to always buffer it into a special whenever you can and have the resources. However, if you do not want to do that, at close range, it is +5 on hit, meaning you can link into medium Thunder Knuckle. Moving on to her heavy buttons. Standing Fierce, or Standing Heavy Punch. It is a 12 frame normal, on the slower side for this type of normal. However, it has good reach, and similar to medium kick and crouching medium kick, it is super jump cancelable. Meaning you can confirm into any of her specials, including seismo. For a huge chunk of damage. And on block, it is -3. And if you use her super jump cancel combined with heavy thunder knuckle feints, which we're gonna cover later on in this video, you can do something like this. Notice how the advantage changes from -3 on block to 0 on block. This is a good strategy to use with Viper. Crouching Fierce is a 9 frame normal, which is more standard for this type of heavy normal. It has good reach, however, as you can see, it is -5 on block. So, you either want to cancel it into a special immediately, or use some of your resources for a feint cancel, which makes it -1. Do note that this is completely free for Crouching Fierce, but for Standing Fierce, it does use 1 bar. Also, on normal hit, it is only +2. However, if you use the feint cancel, it becomes +6, and you can link into Crouching Medium Punch. This is probably one of her best normals, and on counter hit, you can link it into her medium kicks. However, this is generally not the best strategy to do, but on punish counter, you can link it into itself. Another thing with this normal is it also combos into seismo and normal hit. So this is generally going to be one of your most used normals for comboing and for pressure. And on block, we did mention it is -5, and with the cancel, it is -1. So unlike Standing Fierce, it is less safe on block. Moving on to her sweep. This is your standard sweep. However, it has good reach, and unlike all of her other normals, it does not cancel into her super jump. As you can see from the input history, I'm trying to do the super jump cancel and it does not come out. Moving on to her standing heavy kick. This standing heavy kick is at 10 frames, -3 on block, with good reach. It does not connect on a crouching opponent from further away. However, at point blank, it does connect. It is also not driver's cancelable, but it is special cancelable as all her other normals. And as you can see, it is 0 on block when cancelled with feint. You can also use it as an anti-air. And On normal hit, unlike most of the cast, she can actually convert off of an anti-air. However, do note that it does use your drive gauge when used this way. One more thing about standing heavy kick. It does combo into her bird kick. However, do know that this is generally very difficult to do, and we're gonna cover it later on in the advanced section. You do want to use this normal as a combo ender as well. Here's an example. Notice how the knockdown is very advantageous for Viper. And if you want to use more resources, you can do that as well. So off of any juggle, you want to end with standing heavy kick or heavy thunder knuckle. Moving on to her command normals. Her forward medium punch is 22 frame startup, so it's not the fastest overhead in the world compared to someone like mine. However, it has the perk of actually low crushing your opponent's lows. So here's an example. You can, since it low crushes to the ground, you can use it to crush lows, but you're not gonna see it that common. However, its main use is off of drive rush, like any overhead of this type. You can link it into crouching medium punch. Moving on to her next command normal, which is forward heavy kick. Forward heavy kick is +4 on normal hit. And on block, it is -2. Generally, you want to use this normal off of drive rush to get plus frames. However, considering its range, you can also use it as a poke. And on counter hit, it links to crouching medium punch. So this normal, you're gonna see it sometimes. However, considering her other normals, you're gonna see those other normals more. But there's one thing about forward heavy kick that is pretty cool. Its application off of drive rush. It does good damage. And if you don't want to go for a high execution combo, you can go for this route. Instead of the standard crouch fierce feints, which we're gonna cover later on. Moving on to her jumping normals. So, jumping light punch. This is your fastest airborne attack with a small hitbox. However, it can be used as a nice fast air-to-air. Generally, you're not gonna use it that much though compared to her other jumping normals. Moving on to jumping light kick. This is also very fast It has good reach, and on normal hit, you can generally get a light confirm. It also has a very unique use as well. If you do meaty with a jump in, you can use jump back jumping light kick to break your opponent's off defense. It is also a great round ender. So if we do that, notice how the opponent has to block the jumping light kick overhead as well. And most players are not going to do that, especially if they're in burnout. But that's another topic for another time. Moving on to her jumping medium punch. Jumping medium punch is your main standard air-to-air. At 8 frame startup, it juggles into her other specials in the air. Use this to your advantage. And after a seismo, you can do jumping medium punch. For a good chunk of damage. Moving on to her jumping medium kick. Despite its animation, this also hits cross out. Use this to your advantage for crossing up your opponent and opening up their defense. Jumping heavy punch is a very meaty normal on the slower side, but you're gonna see it used with her other jumping heavy normal, which is jump heavy kick. Jumping heavy kick also moving on to her special moves section. C.Viper only has 4 specials, and each of these specials have very special use cases. We're gonna start with her Thunder Knuckle. This is her Light Thunder Knuckle. Light Thunder Knuckle goes pretty far, and it's +1 on hit, meaning it is your turn. And it has a nice property where it goes under fireballs. And if it does go under fireballs, it is +5, allowing you to get a small combo. This special also has a follow-up done by inputting 2 punch buttons. This follow-up is good for Okizeme. As you're +13 on a knockdown. Moving on. Oh, and on block, do be careful. As generally on block, you don't want to do this as it is -4. Moving on to her medium Thunder Knuckle. As previously discussed in the normal section, you mainly want to cancel into this special off of most of her normals, as it is safe on block. And if the opponent tries to drive impact, it is safe, allowing you to drive impact back. This is one of her best specials to use, as on block it is safe, and on hit, point blank, it is +1. However, at further ranges, it allows you to get a combo, as it is +4. And the follow-up is also good for Ikizeme, as it leaves you point blank. This special is basically your buffer special out of her normals, and given its good reach and its properties on counter hit, at further ranges, it is +4 on counter hit. So it's more common to get those confirms out of a masher. Moving on to her Heavy Thunder Knuckle. 7-frame startup. A great anti-air. Given its speed and motion. And since it is anti-air invincible, you want to use this as your primary anti-air for cross-ups as well. So in this situation, this is your primary cross-up. One more thing about Heavy Thunder Knuckle. It has a feint. All of her Thunder Knuckles have feints, but Heavy Thunder Knuckle feint is the main one to use. It allows you to get more pressure, and as we move on to her other specials, it makes one of her most important specials even more potent. Now moving on to Burn Kick. It has a grounded version and an air version. The grounded version, the light kick version is the fastest one at 23 frames, while the heavy kick version is at 27 frames. And on block, it is safe for the grounded version. However, you do generally want to use the light kick version as it is the fastest. For the airborne version, the light kick version is the slowest. However, the heavy kick version is the fastest. However, the travel speed between all those versions is different. For Thunder Knuckle and Bird Kick, there's also the EX versions. This EX Thunder Knuckle is safe on block at -2 and +2 on burnout. And For bird kick, the grounded version is -4, and the air version is +3 to +4. You can also make it +4, or even more plus, depending on how meaty it hits from the ground. Combined with her super jump cancels, which we're gonna cover in the advanced section, you can make burn kick very powerful. It also is a good combo ender from crouching medium punch. You do want to use the light kick version though. And for her airborne combos. Next, we're gonna cover her focus attack, or as it's called in Street Fighter 6, Focus Force. For the regular version, the armor starts at 6 frames, which is typically very slow for an armor move like this, as Zangief starts at frame 2 and Amnesia starts at frame Zangief starts at frame 4 and JP's Amnesia starts at frame 3. Oh, frame 2, sorry. But the perk of this move is it activates immediately upon absorbing an attack. So on some moves like fireballs, where typically they're safe on block, like this move, Viper can punish it very safely. And on a punch counter, it gives a crumple stun on a charge, allowing you to get a full combo. Showcasing this crumple stun, however, do be careful that on block, it is super unsafe at -16. For the EX version, the activation of the armor starts at frame 3, meaning that in situations where characters typically are plus or have their turns, like for example against crouching medium punch from Luke here, which is +1, as you can see, I'm trying to mash and I'm getting hit. You can use EX focus to punish +1 situations. Which is a pretty good solution to these type of situations, aside from perfect parry, of course. And it's one of her only options in Burnout where she can actually stop offense. as in Burnout, she can use this special move. Do be careful that the activation is on the 6th frame, so it does not punish more frames. But it is a tool to keep in the back of your head. Moving on to her most iconic special move, arguably, is her seismo. So seismo has 3 different reaches. The light version goes right in front of her, the medium version goes a bit further away, and the heavy version almost goes full screen. Although do note that it does not go full screen. It goes like 3/4 of your screen. And an important distinction for this special move is, like her normals, it is super jump cancelable. Combined with her super jump cancels, you can do some very incredible pressure. But we're gonna leave that for the advanced section. One more thing about this special move is it's her main way of extending combos. And it links from Crouch Fierce, as mentioned in the normal section. The EX move is much faster, but it does not travel full screen, and it does not have variations. However, it is safer on block. With feint cancels in mind, of course. And the thing about the EX version is it's her only way of getting a seismo off of mediums on normal head, which is a good chunk of damage with this character. Now we're gonna move on to her supers. I'm gonna leave level 1 for the advanced section, so we're gonna discuss level 2 and level 3 in this section as they are more straightforward. Level 2 is done by the inputting quarter circle back plus punch. And on hit, it does a good chunk of damage. There is one hidden advantage to this super. So let's say Viper has 2 drive gauges, and let's say, or 4, and let's say I want to do a drive rush combo, and I want to cancel into super after the combo finishes. Note how the drive bar underneath Viper's HP bar is recovering even after the level 2 super. After a drive rush cancel, Viper is the only one in the cast, to my knowledge, that can recover drive bar after a level 2. Which is great, as this character is drive bar hungry, and you do want that drive bar no matter what. Level 3 is your standard level 3 super at 10 frames. And the CA version does way more damage, but it is the same speed with the same promises. Now we're gonna move on to the advanced section. The advanced section is gonna cover is gonna be the biggest chunk of this video probably. It's gonna cover her super jumps, it's gonna cover her level 1, and it's gonna cover her feint cancels. Combined with their usage with the normals and specials. Moving on to the advanced section. So as previously discussed, we're gonna do the super jump cancels applications. We're also gonna do the feint cancels in more detail, and we're also gonna discuss level 1. And some tricks to make some of those techniques easier. So, starting with her feints. So feint, as discussed in the special section, usually you want to do it with the heavy version. The heavy version is the fastest cancel at 12 frames, as you can see. And as discussed in the normal section, it makes most of our normals safer. But the cool thing is, it has other applications as well. So, as we discussed, the medium kick, both standing and crouching, are not special cancelable by typical means. You have to super jump cancel into specials. However, doing it the typical way can be difficult for some players. So, in this example, I did it and I'm only -2 on block. But you can see that the input can be difficult to do. Some players will think that it goes through to the super jump and then do the special. That is not the case. What you want to do is do a tiger knee motion. So a tiger knee motion is doing the special into up back, like this. Another cool thing about the kick normals is if you hold down the button and then do the heavy thunder knuckle, tiger knee, you automatically get the fastest version of that feint cancel. This is crucial for buffering or hit confirming or stuff like that with Viper. Example with heavy kick. I'm holding the button, as you can see, and it gives me the fastest cancel possible. This does not work with the punch buttons. The punch buttons, you have to cancel them the normal way. The cancel itself is done by doing any kick button. Oh wait, like that. One cool application as well is with her seismo. So seismo is the only special where it's jump cancelable. This opens up a lot of cool pressure sequences with Viper. So normally it's very unsafe on block, right? But if you do the heavy thunder knuckle after, it is only -2, and the X is 0 on block. So what you want from this pressure is to be careful of your drive gauge first. So each time you use the super jump cancel thunder knuckle like this, it does use 1 bar. However, with level 1, it's a different case. We're gonna get into it a little bit. So discussing seismo further, since it is special cancelable into all her specials, it can cancel into itself. One cool thing that you can do to make the execution easier. So normally, this is what the motion you want to do. You want to do a DP input into up forward, but sometimes it misses, right? And you have to time the button presses, and sometimes you're gonna miss, given the execution requirements of this character. One cool thing to make life easier for you, if you hold down the button in the corner, for example, you did a heavy seismo, right? If you hold down the button, you can see that the special comes out regardless. So the execution barrier is way lower for you. So like this. It makes life way easier. But if you prefer to do the old-fashioned way, that's fine. Another thing is in Burnout, seismo is actually plus on block if you do the heavy thunder knuckle cancel. And in Burnout, there's only a 4-frame gap. And on against level 1s, it beats level 1s. So doing this pressure sequence is actually very viable. Like that. Another thing, you can safely cancel it into other Thunder Knuckle versions. So we discussed that this is safe on block. So even if you want to safely end pressure without the feint cancels, you can do that. Like that. Just like that. And it also cancels into her focus attack, but you're not going to use that since we discussed that it is very unsafe on block. Also a good pressure reset is doing a seismo into bird kick. However, this is only advisable if you do level 1. Moving on to level 1. So level 1 is one of Viper's most crucial tools. At 8 frames, it's a good reversal. However, that's not the main use of it. The main use is the install that comes after. Limit the coupler. Limit the coupler makes it so that any super jump is free to use. As you can see, I am super jumping and my drive bar is still intact. This makes some of her confirms less expensive. For example, if I want to do standing medium kick into EX seismo, typically it uses 3 bars, which is very expensive. However, if we use level 1, it only uses 2 bars. So it makes some of her poking much more effective, and it does make her aforementioned pressure sequences much more viable to do. As you can see, it gives me bar. So if Viper has like 2 bars, look at how much bar I just get back from doing 3 seismos. Quite a bit, right? One more thing about level 1. During burnouts, if you're burned out and you use level 1, let me change the settings here. You can only get 1 cancel if you're in burnout. So in burnout, you're advised to not actually use the super jump cancels a lot and instead go for a level 2 to replenish your drive gauge. As for things to make execution easier for you playing this character, as mentioned, holding down the kick buttons into feints is effective. Let me get back the drive gauge. This is quite effective to do. And there's also one more advanced technique that I forgot to talk about. So, as mentioned, you can super jump cancel into specials, right? However, for bird kick, there's a ground version and an air version, right? Jump canceling into air burn kick doesn't get you a combo. So for routes like this, it doesn't get you a combo, right? What you want to do is super jump cancel into grounded bird kick. But that is quite difficult to do normally. So if you do the normal tiger knee motion, I just did it by accident. But basically what you want to do is delay cancel the heavy kick as much as possible so that you can get the grounded bird kick. You see, I canceled it very late and held forward on the special motion. Like that. It increases her damage dramatically. So doing that cancels into level 3 and level 2. Which is great for the character. And as mentioned, since bird kick is safe on block, this is a good way to pressure reset as well. One good pressure sequence from seismo as well is this. So doing seismos like that. But what if we want to be plus after? What you want to do is this. 3 seismos into EX Thunder Knuckle. You're gonna be +2 right in the opponent's face for a throw mix-up. Like that. Into a throw. This is only advisable in burnout though. This whole pressure sequence type thing. And on normal block, this is still viable at further distances. Do be careful from jumping though. So as an example here, common actions, let's make it do a forward jump. You can see that it's very jumpable. However, if you do a feint cancel, and bait out the jump, you can anti-air. Just like that. Which makes her neutral game quite good. You have a advancing special, you have your screen control, you have your anti-air. And do note how much drive gauge it takes from the opponent. So it takes quite a chunk of their drive gauge. However, do note that none of her specials actually true blocks into seismo. So if I go to training mode here and I put block count as 1, None of those are true block strings. And one more thing about seismo cancels. If we go into block type and put it as perfect pairing. Perfect pairing, a seismo considers it as a whiff. So you cannot cancel into another seismo. I am doing my best here to cancel into another seismo and I cannot. This is an answer that the opponent can do to bait you out. However, if the opponent is doing a drive parry on wake up, for example, let's say I do something like this, and the opponent wakes up with a drive parry, right? Or on block, let's say on block they want to do a drive parry, right? Let's say not as a reversal, but as a